Have you ever stood in a room full of family, surrounded by laughter and conversation, yet deep down you felt completely alone? It's unsettling, isn't it? You're physically there, but emotionally you sense something is off. Perhaps it's because someone close, a parent, sibling or relative, has an invisible grip on your spirit. Their words cut you down, their presence drains your energy, leaving you feeling uncertain, powerless, or even broken inside. You tell yourself it's nothing. Maybe you're just imagining things. Maybe you're overly sensitive. After all, family is sacred, right? Blood bonds are supposed to be unbreakable. But what if that very belief is precisely what's keeping you trapped in cycles of pain and emotional exhaustion? Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." But when the harm comes from those closest to us, that suffering is far from imaginary, it becomes painfully real. There are people, even within our own families, who manipulate, deceive, and disguise their cruelty behind smiles and kind gestures. We're not talking about petty disagreements or normal arguments. We're talking about emotional manipulation, destructive behaviors, and toxic dynamics that slowly but surely erode your sense of self. The Stoics teach us to see reality clearly, to embrace the truth without fear. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. It's essential to face difficult truths, not to dwell in bitterness, but to free ourselves from confusion and reclaim our power. Today we're going to explore 6 warning signs that a family member isn't merely difficult or toxic, but genuinely dangerous. This isn't meant to frighten you. It's meant to empower you. Because awareness is the first step toward reclaiming your peace, your dignity, and your emotional freedom. Let's begin. Sign 1. They enjoy your pain. Have you ever felt that someone in your family secretly enjoys seeing you hurt? Family is meant to be our safe haven, a place where we find comfort, support, and genuine care. But when someone close takes pleasure in your struggles, it creates confusion, heartbreak, and emotional exhaustion. Maybe you've tried to ignore it, telling yourself they're just blunt or express love in a tough way. But look carefully, does this person seem to take satisfaction in your setbacks? When you face difficulty, a failed relationship, financial hardship, or a career challenge, instead of compassion, they respond with mockery or indifference. It's subtle but deeply unsettling. Perhaps you have noticed a smirk when you are struggling, or a cold, dismissive "I told you so" that leaves you feeling small. Maybe they pretend to care, but their words always carry a hidden sharpness, making you question whether they are truly on your side. Sometimes their cruelty is not loud, it is the silence when you need support the most, the way they disappear when you are at your lowest. When you desperately need their support, they vanish, belittle your concerns, or change the subject. This behavior isn't care, it's control. They're feeding off your emotional struggle. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." If someone in your family enjoys your pain, refuse to respond with bitterness. Instead, become aware. See them clearly, recognize their behavior for what it is: destructive, harmful, and completely unacceptable. You are never weak for feeling hurt, but you must never allow their cruelty to define you. Set firm boundaries. Refuse to give them power over your emotional state. You have the strength to step away from anyone who delights in your downfall. Family should lift you up, not tear you down. Surround yourself with people who genuinely care. Walk away, not out of anger, but from clarity and self-respect. Because when you no longer let their cruelty affect your self-worth, you have already won. Sign 2. They compete with you, not support you. Family is supposed to be your safe haven, a place of acceptance, encouragement, and genuine support. But sometimes those closest to you see your success not as something to celebrate, but as a personal threat. Instead of lifting you up, they constantly compare themselves to you, turning every conversation into a subtle competition. Some do not just enjoy seeing you struggle, they cannot stand seeing you succeed. Think about a moment you shared something important, maybe a promotion, a new relationship, or an achievement you were proud of. Instead of being genuinely happy for you, did this person quickly steer the conversation to their own achievements? Did they immediately mention how they did something similar but better, faster, or earlier? Perhaps you announced you finally completed a challenging project, and they responded with, "That's nice, but I did mine weeks ago." These comments seem harmless at first glance, but beneath the surface lies jealousy, insecurity, and resentment. This competitiveness isn't always obvious. It often hides behind playful teasing or innocent-seeming remarks. Statements like, "Not everyone is lucky enough to have your opportunities," or "You've always had it easier," aren't casual observations. They're calculated moves to diminish your accomplishments. Over time, these subtle remarks plant seeds of doubt, making you question your own achievements, your efforts, and even your worth. Marcus Aurelius reminds us clearly, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Recognize that their need to compete isn't about you, it's about their own unfulfilled desires and insecurities. They see your growth as their inadequacy. Understanding this allows you to detach emotionally and refuse to play their game. Real family relationships should strengthen you, not weaken you. When someone consistently competes instead of supporting, it drains your energy, damages your self-esteem, and prevents genuine connection. You deserve better. It's essential to clearly identify this behavior and refuse to participate. Stop expecting validation from someone determined to minimize your achievements. Step away from their competition, not out of anger, but from clarity and self-respect. Surround yourself with those who celebrate your victories genuinely, without hidden jealousy or resentment. Epictetus advises us wisely, if anyone tells you that someone is speaking ill of you, don't make excuses, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, or else he wouldn't have mentioned only these." Your path is yours alone. You're never obligated to play someone else's game of comparison. You are only in competition with who you were yesterday. Set firm boundaries. Refuse to engage in their petty competitions. Your life is not a race against others. It's about becoming better each day on your own terms. When you choose to walk your path confidently, untouched by their attempts to diminish you, you free yourself to grow into the person you truly deserve to be. Sign 3. They constantly manipulate your emotions. Family should be your sanctuary, a place where your emotions are respected and your heart is safe. But what if someone close to you constantly manipulates your feelings, leaving you confused, anxious, and emotionally exhausted? Emotional manipulation is subtle yet devastating, slowly draining your confidence until you no longer trust yourself. It often starts quietly. Perhaps you've noticed a pattern. No matter how carefully you approach this person, it's never enough. You're always left feeling that you did something wrong. Maybe they're warm one day, distant the next, leaving you endlessly guessing what mood you'll encounter next. You open up about your struggles, hoping for empathy, but they respond with guilt, reminding you of all they've done, turning your pain into their sacrifice. Suddenly you're made to feel selfish for seeking comfort. Then there's gaslighting, an insidious manipulation tactic. You confront them about hurtful comments or behaviors, but instead of taking responsibility, they deny it altogether. "You're too sensitive," they say, "I never said that," or "You're imagining things." Over time, this repeated denial makes you doubt your own perceptions. You wonder if maybe you are the one who's mistaken, overly emotional, or irrational. And that's exactly their goal, to control your reality, keeping you unsure, dependent, and unable to stand your ground. Another manipulative tactic is emotional unpredictability. One day they're warm, affectionate, making you feel valued. But just when you let your guard down, they become distant, cold, indifferent for no apparent reason. This emotional roller coaster keeps you off balance, always striving to regain their approval, always wondering what you did wrong. But here's the truth: you did nothing wrong. Their behavior isn't a reflection of your worth, it's their method of control. Perhaps the cruelest manipulation is when someone weaponizes your vulnerabilities. You opened up, sharing your fears, insecurities, and painful memories, trusting they'd protect these sensitive truths. Instead, they've turned your vulnerabilities into ammunition, using them to shame you, silence you, and reinforce their control. True family protects your weaknesses, never weaponizes them. Marcus Aurelius said clearly, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If you allow someone else's manipulative words to shape your thoughts, your self-worth will slowly erode. You must recognize manipulation for what it truly is: control, not love. You deserve better, and you have the right to emotional freedom. Awareness is your greatest weapon. Recognize manipulation clearly, set boundaries firmly, and reclaim your emotional autonomy. Refuse to be drawn into their emotional games. Instead, stay grounded in your truth, certain of your worth, unaffected by their attempts to control your feelings. Epictetus teaches, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. Your emotional freedom isn't negotiable, not even with family. You are not obligated to tolerate manipulation disguised as love. Recognize this toxic dynamic for what it truly is, set boundaries decisively, and regain the emotional clarity and peace you deserve. Sign 4. They never take responsibility for their actions. A person who refuses to take responsibility for their actions creates an exhausting cycle, one where truth is distorted, blame is shifted, and resolution is impossible. At first, you might make excuses for them. Maybe they do not realize what they are doing. Maybe they had a difficult past. Maybe if you are patient, they will change. But over time, the pattern becomes clear. They never acknowledge their wrongs. Instead, they avoid accountability, rewrite history, and somehow always make you the problem. Think back to past arguments or conflicts with this person. Have they ever truly admitted fault? Or do they always find a way to justify, excuse, or outright deny their behavior? If they say something cruel and you call them out, do they apologize? Or do they dismiss your feelings with statements like, "You are too sensitive," or "That is not what I meant"? Notice how the focus shifts. Instead of addressing the harm they caused, they make it about your reaction. Suddenly, you find yourself defending your emotions rather than holding them accountable. This is no accident. It is manipulation. Some will take it even further, making you question reality itself. They pretend the issue never happened, insist you are making a big deal out of nothing, or act as if you imagined the whole thing. This slow erosion of truth creates an emotional imbalance where your pain is invalidated, your voice is drowned out, and your self-worth is diminished. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, do not waste your energy trying to change someone who refuses to change. Focus instead on living by your own values. If a family member refuses to acknowledge their harmful actions, that is their burden to carry, not yours. But here is the danger. When accountability is absent, so is growth. If they never own up to their behavior, they will never change. And if you keep hoping for a different outcome, you will only find yourself trapped in an endless cycle of frustration and emotional exhaustion. The truth is, you should never have to beg for an apology. You should never have to fight for basic respect. And you should never shrink yourself just to maintain peace with someone who refuses to meet you halfway. A family member who avoids responsibility is not just frustrating, they are emotionally draining. If they never change, the burden on your mental and emotional well-being will only grow. Setting boundaries is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of self-respect. You deserve relationships where your feelings are acknowledged, where your pain is not dismissed, and where accountability is not seen as a threat, but as a path to growth. If someone refuses to own their mistakes, let them sit with them alone. You have a life to live, one free from the weight of carrying responsibility for someone who refuses to carry their own. Sign 5. They only reach out when they want something. There is something deeply unsettling about realizing that a family member only contacts you when they need something. It is a painful truth that, once seen, cannot be ignored. You might go weeks, even months, without hearing from them. No messages, no calls, no check-ins. But then, suddenly your phone rings. For a brief moment, you feel hope. Maybe this time they just want to talk, to connect, to see how you have been. But as the conversation unfolds, the truth becomes clear. They do not ask about your life, your struggles, or your happiness. They need a favor, a loan, an introduction, or some other form of help. And once they get what they want, they disappear again, leaving you feeling used rather than valued. At first, you may dismiss it. They must be busy. Maybe they do not realize what they are doing. You tell yourself, it is family, I should help. And yes, family should support one another. But a relationship built on one-sided expectations is not family, it is an emotional transaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. If every interaction with them leaves you feeling drained, unseen, or unappreciated, it is time to shift your perspective. Think back to the last time you were struggling. Did they reach out? Did they offer support? Or were they nowhere to be found until they needed something from you? Imagine you have had a difficult week. Maybe you are grieving, overwhelmed with stress, or simply in need of someone to listen. You hesitate to call them because deep down, you know how the conversation will go. If you do reach out, your pain is brushed aside, replaced by their own needs. Weeks pass, and just as you begin to move on, they call without acknowledging your struggles, without asking how you have been, just with another request. Over time, this pattern erodes something within you. It makes you question your value. Do they care about me at all, or am I just useful to them? You start to wonder if your worth in their eyes is tied solely to what you can provide. The Stoics remind us that external circumstances should not dictate our inner peace. But when someone repeatedly treats you as a resource rather than a person, it is hard not to feel the weight of it. Here is the truth. You are not an ATM. You are not a tool to be picked up when needed and discarded when you are no longer useful. True relationships, whether family or otherwise, are built on mutual care, not convenience. If you find yourself always giving while they only take, it is time to reassess. Setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect. You have the right to say no, to protect your energy, to step away from relationships that only drain you. Epictetus said, "If someone is unable to live up to your expectations, that is their choice. But you must choose whether to accept it or move on." If a family member only reaches out when they need something, it may be time for a difficult conversation or perhaps a quiet step back. You deserve relationships that nourish your soul, not ones that leave you feeling empty. Recognizing the pattern is the first step. What you do next is entirely within your power. Sign 6. They violate your boundaries. Few things are more exhausting than a family member who constantly disregards your boundaries. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are the framework that protects your emotional well-being. They define what you will and will not accept, allowing relationships to be built on mutual respect. But when someone repeatedly ignores them, it creates a toxic dynamic, one where your needs are dismissed and your sense of control slowly erodes. Imagine clearly expressing your limits. Maybe you have asked for personal space, set rules about how you want to be treated, or made it known that certain topics are off limits. Yet, time and again, this person disregards them. They push, they demand, they intrude. Perhaps you have said you need time alone to recharge, but they call or show up at all hours, ignoring your request. Maybe you have drawn a line on certain discussions, but they continuously bring them up, dismissing your discomfort as an overreaction. Instead of respecting your needs, they make you feel guilty for having them. They tell you that you are selfish for wanting space, dramatic for setting limits, or ungrateful for creating distance. They twist the situation, making you question whether your boundaries are unreasonable. Slowly, you begin to doubt yourself. The Stoics teach that we cannot control others, only our response to them. When someone repeatedly violates your boundaries, the real question is not why they do it, but why you allow it to continue. Every time you let their behavior slide, it reinforces their belief that your limits do not matter. Over time, this dynamic drains you, making you feel powerless in your own life. Marcus Aurelius once said, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" The frustration and emotional exhaustion you feel from having your boundaries ignored are far worse than the discomfort of enforcing them. If someone constantly disregards your limits, it is time to stand firm. Boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary. No one, not even family, has the right to dictate what you should tolerate. Epictetus reminds us, how long will you wait before you demand the best for yourself? If someone continuously ignores your needs, the solution is not to keep explaining, keep compromising, or keep hoping they will change. The solution is to make a choice. You decide what behavior you accept. You decide what kind of relationships you allow in your life. Setting boundaries is not about punishing others. It is about protecting yourself. If they refuse to respect your limits, the real boundary you may need to set is distance. You do not have to justify your need for peace. You do not have to explain why you protect your well-being. You only have to decide that you are worth more than the exhaustion of fighting for basic respect. Conclusion. Now that you recognize these 6 warning signs, the real question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Seeing the truth is only the first step. The next step is taking action. For too long, many people stay trapped in painful family dynamics because they believe they have no choice. They believe that being family means tolerating toxic behavior, sacrificing their peace, and enduring endless cycles of guilt and manipulation. But that is not the truth. Seneca said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." If someone constantly harms your emotional well-being, whether they are a stranger or a family member, you have the right to protect yourself. The fact that someone is related to you does not give them unlimited access to your life. Think about the relationships in your family. Do you feel uplifted, supported, and valued? Or do you feel drained, controlled, and diminished? If any of the 6 signs resonate with you, it is time to reassess. Awareness is power. The moment you recognize these behaviors for what they are, you can no longer pretend they do not exist. You can no longer excuse them, ignore them, or hope they will magically change. You must decide. That decision will not always be easy. Setting boundaries may be met with resistance. Walking away from toxic relationships may bring discomfort. But the alternative is far worse. The alternative is staying in situations that rob you of your peace, your clarity, and your emotional freedom. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." True freedom begins in your mind. It begins when you stop seeking validation from people who do not value you. It begins when you stop allowing guilt to keep you in relationships that only bring suffering. It begins when you choose yourself, your peace, and your well-being. Now, take a moment to reflect. Have you seen these warning signs in someone close to you? If you have, do not ignore them. Every day that you allow toxic behavior to continue is a day you sacrifice your own peace. You deserve better. You deserve clarity, respect, and emotional freedom. The time to act is now. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if this message resonated with you, take action. Like this video, subscribe for more insights, and most importantly, start making choices that align with your highest self. Remember this: you are not obligated to tolerate manipulation, disrespect, or emotional harm, no matter who it comes from. Strength is not just about enduring hardship. It is about knowing when to walk away. Until next time, take control of what you can, let go of what you cannot, and always choose wisdom over chaos. Your peace is worth it.